Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another live stream. It's your boy, as always. I promised I would return today, and so I delivered. Give me 1 second. Ooh, that would have been tragic. Uh, so I see some of the usual suspects are in the chat. Uh, Arturo, what's up? Henry Covert, how you doing? Debate Me channel. He says, "Yo, did you get my cash app?" I did see some cash app donations. Not sure exactly what your cash app name is. Um, but I usually like if I get a donation through PayPal or like GoFundMe or something, I usually try to like send a thank you like through email or something like that. But I don't have that option with Cash App. So um, yeah. I did see those Cash App donations though. Give me 1 second. Let me. Mm, okay, let me just get this. I'm gonna post this stream on Twitter, and then we'll get it. This show on the road. Uh, some of you may have been a part of the epic live stream yesterday, the longest live stream on the Unapologetic channel on record. We went almost 3 hours. I'm gonna tell you from right now, that is probably not happening again today. That is most likely not happening again tonight. Um, Damn, I really do wish I had some videos to cut up already. Uh, Give me 1 second. Uh, uh, uh. All right. I'm back. The Baby channel said, okay, give me 1 second. Ashura says, "Did you know Status Quo took jabs at Fred Hampton leftists and Jimmy?" That sounds like something that you would find at that channel over there. I haven't seen it. If you have like a specific name of the video, I'll look into that. And the Baby channel says, "What's the best way to contact me about sponsorship?" Okay, so I don't know exactly what you mean. I would say the best way to contact me. Well, first of all right, I'm gonna tell you the best way to contact me. Either DM me on Twitter. My DMs are open, but I will warn you now. I hardly go through my DMs. Most people who know me on Twitter know this. People who want me to come on their show know this. So you could try. I'll definitely go there and look now for it. Um, DM me on Twitter, or you could DM me. Not DM. You could email me for the email for the show, which is unapologetic biz01 biz01 at gmail.com. And I'll look out for an email there. But as far as sponsorship, I don't really do sponsorships on this channel. I'll open to hearing what you have to say, but I'm just gonna let you know from right now. So you could contact me in any of those ways if you had something to ask or bring up with me. Ashura says they were talking about the Boogaloo Boys again. Okay, so I saw that they posted a video on the channel about that. I watched maybe like the first minute of it. No. Yeah, I watched maybe like the first minute of it, or like a minute into the video, or something like that. I didn't really get into it, but I did plan on watching the video. So thanks for reminding me about it though, because I probably would have forgotten. All right, almost 10 minutes in. So, I have a very very long clip from the interview that Briahna Joy Gray did with Kshama Sawant, and now that I'm thinking about it, I probably should have broken that up, and I'm gonna see if I can. I'm gonna see if I can do that midstream. Uh, Give me 1 second, y'all. Like always, one man band here. It's just me, myself, and I, and apparently we are like yesterday we had to break some barriers and did some technical things behind the scenes, and things that I would normally have to do in prep, but I messed up in prep. I had to do it in the live stream. We are also going to be breaking barriers again today because now I'm going to do something really unprecedented. I'm going to try to chop up and edit a video while I'm talking to you all. So let me see how that works out. Because it is a very long video and I don't want to miss any like the important points that I wanted to respond to. So it might just be, and I don't know why that thought is just crossing my mind as I'm live. Like I wasn't prepared for hours before this live stream, but this the creative process. Sometimes it just hits you randomly, like the most inconvenient times. All right, give me 1 second. All right, you know what? I don't think I'm gonna be able to do that. I'm not gonna be able to do that in the live stream. Uh, Give me 1 second. I'm gonna check the chat real quick one more time before. At unapologetic, Hassan Piker went after Nicki Minaj for calling out his fake socialist grudge for making $200,000 a month on in other merchandise. I saw the exchange over Nicki Minaj, her statements on the vaccine, and with Hassan Piker and Vaush and whatever. And I thought the whole episode was actually kind of weird because the White House was like got all involved and it was trying to like get Nicki Minaj's mind right and told her to come to the White House and all that types of shit. The whole thing was weird. I don't remember all the specifics. It was a couple weeks ago, and I wasn't like neck deep into it. But that's just kind of my face value thoughts on it. All right, so we're just gonna get into this, baby. So the first story I'm gonna talk about, the interview with Briahna Gray, Kshama Sawant, where there was an exchange about Bernie, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Pramila Jayapal, the Justice Democrats, and how they're really just not a threat to the establishment. And they went into detail on that. So I'm gonna get into that. And there's also a second story that I want to talk about. I may or may not be able to get to that story. If I don't do it today, I'll do it tomorrow, definitely. But Google, there was a revelation the other day about these things called keyword warrants that the FBI and the Department of Justice has been giving to Google, and it's basically they get a warrant from a court and require Google to turn over data, and it's not like they have a specific suspect in mind and they want access to that person's Google account so they get a warrant to investigate further. That's not what they're doing. So they get these warrants, these extremely broad warrants for keyword searches, and they add some filters. And again, this whole process is done in secret. The only reason why Forbes even was able to publish this story was because uh, the Department of Justice accidentally unsealed some of the documents, the court documents, and one of the reporters saw it. But it uncovered this very secretive practice of the government going to Google with these warrants for and requesting all the data on users who did specific searches, and they might add in narrowed this the search or add like filters like, okay, you search for this term, but we also want people who search for this term over like these couple weeks throughout the year or in this location or whatever, and then they get that information from Google, and then those people become suspects in the criminal investigation based entirely on their Google searches with no other evidence. So it is definitely some weird dystopian police state, Big Brother watching you type shit. Um, so I definitely want to talk about uh, that Google story, but I may or may not do it in this stream. So I'm going to get into that Brianna Drake Gray clip right now. So I'm assuming many of you in my audience are familiar with who Kshama Sawant is. She is a city council member in Seattle. She is a member of the Socialist Alternative Party, and she is an activist, and she has taken her activism uh, uh, and just moved it to her new position, or not her new position, but her current position as a city council member, and she's using the power of activism to advance her policy agenda through the city council, and she's been successful at this. She years ago was the one who won the $15 minimum wage fight for Seattle. One of the first cities in the country, it might actually have been the first city in the country to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. Kshama Sawant was able to do that with the pressure from activists in the community and from Socialist Alternative. She recently had a win on um, a policy that so if property owners are renting their property to a tenant and they decide to increase the rent, and the tenant can't afford the rent and they have to find a new place or whatever. Kshama Sawant just passed a new rule through the city council that says that the landlord would then have to provide 3 months rent to the tenant so that they can find a new place, which is unheard of. A policy like that, and giving that is really solely to the benefit of the renters, and not just letting the landlords and the property owners screw them at every turn with absolutely no interference from the government. So that is definitely uh, an exception to the way that property and renting laws have been enforced and created in cities across the country. So those are two big things, and she's also in the middle of a fight for rent control to pass rent control in the city of Seattle. So she has been leading the charge for the working class movement, the left movement in Seattle, and getting getting some sizable, some real wins, tangible wins, policy wins um, through in her position. So because of that, the entire political establishment in the city has been out for her head basically since she's been a member of the city council. And Amazon is one of the huge drivers of this because they are based in Seattle, and so a lot of Kshama Sawant's worker focused policies would affect Amazon directly right at their headquarters. So they view her as a threat. So they've been leading efforts to recall her from her seat, to get her removed from the, even though they've backed challenges against her in the elections, she still wins. And so they, by hook or by crook, they're going to try to get her out. So now the current strategy is trying to get her out through a recall, a whole bunch of funny business around the recall and all that stuff. And I think the vote is supposed to be within like the next couple weeks. So look out for that. But so she's been the ire. She's drew the ire of the establishment in her area because of they view her as an actual threat, because she's not just like tweeting about good policies. She's not just giving these using flowery rhetoric and giving these fancy speeches as Kamala Harris said about Tulsi Gabbard giving fancy speeches. She's actually organizing people and doing direct action and facilitating the pressure in the streets. So that's why they view her as a threat. So so I'm going to get to the clip from Briahna Gray. It's a really long clip. So I'll get to that. But first, let me just say something else about Kshama Sawant. You already know how I feel about politicians in this country, politicians in general, really. The way we should view them, we should view them as politicians. They aren't like our allies. They aren't our friends. They're there to fulfill a job, to fulfill a role, and that is to enact our policy agenda and pass it through legislation. And that goes for all politicians. And for me, especially after seeing what a epic failure the Justice Democrats and Bernie have been over the last few years, it's my view of politicians has definitely gone down a lot. But one of the only ways I would say a kind word about a politician is if there's action behind the rhetoric. If you can see that they mean what they say and that they are actually fighting for the people. That's the only way I'll have a kind word to say about a politician, or encourage anybody to support them in any kind of way. And Kshama Sawant, she is about the talk. She walks the talk, or whatever the saying is. A percentage of her salary goes directly to socialist alternative and organizations that to advance the policy agenda of the working class. So she's as committed as it can possibly get. And of course, she's active, one of the most active members in and prominent members of the Socialist Alternative Party. So she's helping to build the party and helps with their direct actions, comes out to support them or whatever, because there's a mutual relationship between the organizers and Kshama Sawant. She knows she can't do her job without them, and they know that they need, or it's the best way to enact their policy agenda is if they have somebody on the inside raising hell and using the leverage that people in the streets grants them. So they have a mutual relationship. And I really feel like that is the ideal dynamic that the movement should have with politicians. So there are very few politicians in this country that I have respect for. Kshama Sawant is one of them. So all that was to lead up to this video. Like I said, it's going to be a longer video. It's going to be 15 minutes. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to stop the video while I'm playing it. I still have no idea how to do that. or if that's even possible. So, actually, you know what? Give me 1 second. But first, you already know the deal. If you're able to contribute to the show, the links are in the description box of this video. Links to PayPal, links to Patreon. So you could PayPal if you want to do a one-time contribution. I'll also be looking for notifications on PayPal. If you leave a note or anything like that, a comment, I'll read it during the stream. Patreon, so you could do monthly subscriptions or monthly donations to the show automatically. You don't even really have to think about it. Sign up for $2 a month, $5 a month, however much. There's a link to a GoFundMe in the description box, so I could have a regular place to record. There's a link to Cash App, and that link to Cash App is also pinned in the live chat. So I'm going to give me 1 second. I'm gonna pull up the video, but I'm first see if I could figure out how to stop. Give me 1 second, guys. Still trying to figure this out. All right, everybody, just give me 1 second. Again, technical issues. There is no tech support here. It's just me. Um, all right, so I'm not going to be able to pause the video. I would have to download a plugin, and that is not going to happen. So here's the thing: we're going to play the video, and I will come back and break it down. It's going to be 15 minutes, so it's going to be a pretty long video.
Why is it that you think squad members don't mobilize folks in the way that you've described, aren't presumably, from what we can tell, reaching out to labor to rally in the way that you've described? These are people who have an enormous amount of social media outlets, enormous email lists, and not just including the squad, people like Bernie Sanders, who obviously had an enormous amount of reach as a carryover from his presidential campaign, his two presidential campaigns.
I think that regardless of intentions, and I've said this on your show before, I'm not a mind reader, so let's assume that many of the individuals have best intentions. I think you can be an elected representative, progressive elected representative, with and very well intentioned, and yet not want to actually pose a serious enough challenge to the corporate forces, because it is very, very, it's very hard to do it. I'm not saying that to give them an excuse, but I'm saying that to explain that in order to be able to do that, actually call mass rallies, you have to be willing to truly accept the gauntlet that's being thrown to you, which is that you are
what
going
is the
to oppose
gauntlet?
corporate.
Yeah. What are the
gauntlet is-
consequences?
The consequences are is what you're seeing right now in Seattle. The consequences are that they will stop at nothing. Right now, they are trying to recall me, a 3 times elected representative, even though they were not able to win in 2019. But that's not the only consequence. I believe, I can say this because I've had nearly 8 years of direct experience of what it looks like to be a genuine Marxist elected representative who is making no bones about which side I am on. What that means, Briahna, is that your daily life becomes a battleground. And a lot of the times, in fact, virtually all of the time, because unfortunately for us, I think our office is that rare example of a genuine fight back where not only have we refused to sell out, but we have also refused to be marginalized, and we have an unprecedented track record on winning victories, virtually unheard of. It's unfortunate that it's so rare, but that's where it is. But I believe the reason is that when you actually do that, and this is the answer to your question also, like why aren't they calling for mass rallies? Well, that is when you become a serious enemy of the ruling class. As long as you are making speeches and saying, well, I'm not going to vote on this or that, they still don't like you, and they will go to war against you as much as they possibly can. And I'm not trying to portray that as not requiring courage. However, that is not what actually poses the challenge to big business. It's when you mobilize ordinary people that happens.
Yeah, that's kind of, I don't want to define somebody's sincerity only by virtue of the opposition against them, but on some level, it does feel like if you aren't getting treated the way that you are being treated, I have some skepticism about whether or not you're actually, presenting a real challenge to power. So this was part of the analysis around the AOC dress business. It's not that, I personally have strong feelings one way or the other about the idea of doing a performative stunt like that at a ball. But the fact that the response from the Met Gala itself, from the celebrities in question, was positive, right? It suggests to me that it wasn't as subversive as it should have been, or which would have kind of justified all of the other kind of critiques about why would you want to enter that space, why would you want to validate these people, et cetera, that were going on.
Yes, I think that's very true, Briahna. I believe that you can take that as a rule of thumb, that if you are not facing absolute hostility from the ruling class and their political representatives, then you're not doing what needs to be done for the working class. Now, I say that with such clarity because there is a temptation among genuine people, and it's not just about people who get elected. Ordinary people have this feeling that there's this desire to believe that, well, everybody can get along in Congress or in City Hall, and yet we can really change society. It doesn't work because that's not how it's set up. That is not how capitalism is set up. You cannot go to the fossil fuel billionaires and nice them into ending the use of fossil fuel and moving to clean energy and provide just transition for their workers. You cannot nice them into it. You have to fight them tooth and nail to win anything. We did not win $15 an hour by believing that businesses who opposed that could be won over by us talking to them nicely, or that the Democrats who were threatening to vote against it would vote yes because I could be nice to them. And honestly, I think that I am actually nicer to them than they are. You should see how they brutalize me often publicly. People have seen this, but it is not personal. The fact is, again, to your point, the fact that they behave that way to me shows that they are very clear which side I am on, and because they represent the interests of the ruling class, they will go to war against me. So it's not personal, it is absolutely politics. But unless you're taking that battle on, you are not doing what needs to be done for the working class. But here again, having an organization with you is extremely important. I would not want your listeners, your viewers, to walk away from what I'm saying with a sense of, oh, well, so then we need people of very high moral caliber. Yeah, first of all, you do need people of high moral caliber. Let's make no bones about that. Yes, that is true. But this is not only about individual characteristics. Our battle is lost before we even fight it if we believe that, oh, then we need messiahs or great individuals. No, that's not what it's about. It's about having your own organization that stands with you tooth and nail, that is organizing actually, not just talking about it, but organizing on the ground. The reason I am able to be so bold is because I have Socialist Alternative with me, and I am by no means alone. And that gives me it's not about emotional, it's about political. That gives me the political stamina and the strength and the clarity to go forward. And so as long as people are individuals, it is not going to work despite their best intentions. And that's why, did Bernie Sanders show tremendous courage, and did he have a very principled approach to what kind of campaign he ran, in terms of, bringing the working class demands? Absolutely. It takes a lot of courage to do what he did. But at the end of the day, what are we left with from the defeats he experienced at the hands of the Democratic establishment in the DCC, whatever it's called? What do we have left over? Compare that to had he built a political organization coming out of his defeat in 2016 rather than providing cover for the Biden administration. That's the difference.
Yeah, here's the thing. I watched the Biden administration put out a little promo video about the infrastructure talks, I believe, yesterday. And you see a bunch of senators sitting in the Oval Office, and Bernie is among them. And I was struck because, it was the first time I remember seeing an image of Bernie in the Oval like that. It was perhaps the most, the highest status photo I'd ever seen of him, or video I'd ever seen of him. And I confess it made me feel some kind of way, like not a positive way. I just had this kind of flash of, okay, we were talking about a $6 trillion bill down to $3.5 trillion, and now we're in there, and Biden's talking about 2, and Manchin's throwing out 1.5, even though Manchin a few months ago was talking about 4, and they're all sitting in this room debating it. And I want the Bernie that's out in front of the crowd. I like the Bernie that, instead of trying to make his case to a room full of people who are paid to want to oppose him, is making the case to people who can sincerely pressure them to do better, to do what is needed. And I don't know. Like I have been really hesitant to kind of be openly critical of individuals who I'm asking basically to display a significant degree of courage. And I'm not, I want to be sensitive to the fact that the demand is high and the risks are high and significant. But at the same time, sometimes I feel like that conversation about what elected officials, what, political leaders have to put themselves through is overly centered over the harms that are being experienced by millions of people every single day, and we can lose sight of that. And when the rhetoric of what ordinary people are going through is coupled or is deployed by political leaders to motivate certain kinds of actions, and then frankly, to motivate compromise, to justify compromise, it becomes really disgusting. I got to be honest. And the cynicism of that is in some ways too much to bear.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you.
No, I'm done. I was going to maybe play, I want you to respond to that if you want, but I was also going to maybe play this clip of AOC doing the cable news shows and showing how she sounds in the rhetoric that she's using right now around this infrastructure debate.
Yes, we should be holding elected representatives to high standards. And I also want to be clear, we are not, at least I am not, when I think of, holding leaders accountable and holding them to higher standards, I'm not just talking about Congress members or city council members, something like that. We're also talking about elected officers in the labor movement, We're talking about unelected, but clearly people who are playing a leadership role in social movements, like in the Black Lives Matter movement.
Well, that labor point I think is important, because part of why I asked that question wasn't just to be like, the progressives aren't doing what they need to be doing, but there is some question as to whether or not labor would deploy if asked at all, given the capture that exists at the head of a lot of these kinds of institutions.
Oh yeah, and in fact, I would say the labor leaders have been missing in action right now. I mean, why aren't they mobilizing hundreds of thousands of union members, if not millions, around the nation in order to push for the maximum possible potential and really put pressure on Biden, Kristen Sinema, and on Joe Manchin. And I think you have to, alongside calling out the deficiencies in what the progressive Congress members have done, we also have to point out the deficiencies of the labor leaders as well. And they're sort of the progressive leaders in every realm are sort of busy giving each other cover, and then basically it is presented in a personalized standpoint that, well, it's very hard to do. You can't hold them to such high standards because you've never done it. You don't know what kind of hell it is. Well, we cannot accept that. We cannot accept that for precisely the reason you said, because yes, that is what you are called upon to do. That is what history requires us to do. We are facing an existential crisis as far as the human race is concerned. We are talking about tens of millions of Americans in the richest country in the world facing untold misery of different kinds, only compounded by the pandemic, by the economic crisis that they experienced. So yes, should we be holding elected leaders to high standards? Absolutely. Do they have an obligation? Absolutely. And I don't want to hear about, we can't expect everyone to be like you, Kshama. This is what I hear from people, and that is why we have to really push back against personality-oriented politics. It should not be seen as, some rare person can do it. No, what we need are political organizations like a working class party that will be accountable to us, where the party, by the power of its membership, by the rank and file, having a real say in what kind of party we want, that by that rank and file power, we can democratically decide this is the kind of campaign we want to run, this is the kind of candidate we want to have, and we are going to, within the party, democratically choose candidates who are up for that job. And if they prove deficient, then we are not against the idea of recall. We're just pointing out that in this case, the recall is by big business against working people. But working people absolutely should have the right to recall representatives who have failed them, because that is what the system does. Ultimately, the reason Bernie Sanders was in the Oval Office, in that photo op or whatever, I genuinely don't believe that it's because he wants to aggrandize himself, but it is because people like him believe that this is the best you can do. This is the best you can do. You can't overthrow capitalism. You can't. You have to make changes on the periphery. Well, we don't agree with that, and we don't believe that the times call for minimal changes. The time call for dramatic and courageous action, and that cannot come from personalized politics. It can only come from mass action, where masses of people have the democratic say in what happens.
All right, so I know that the video was glitching a little bit. I had no control over that, but thank God the audio is still working because got the point across. There's a lot to break down in that, and if you watch that whole thing, you can tell why I was having a hard time deciding what to cut out and what to leave out, because it was a very informative exchange that, and in the flow, I just didn't want to interrupt it at all. So let me start with back at the beginning, if I could reach back that far. So the conversation starts with a question from Briahna about why does Kshama think it is that Bernie, AOC, all these people with millions of followers on social media, and nominally in name only, leading this large movement of grassroots activists across the country and workers across the country, why is it that they won't call for direct action? Because at this point, it is not even up for debate anymore. It's over. The jury's in, and all the evidence is in. We are not going to get out of the multiple crises that we're in through electoral politics. It's not going to happen. The only way we're going to get real substantive change in this country is through direct action and with people in the streets. So knowing that, anybody who's serious about politics and follows these things closely, and from the perspective of the working class that has been left for dead, you know this. So why is it these alleged leaders of this movement refuse to engage in direct action? And kind of wasn't a fan of how Kshama Sawant led into her response to this. It was saying that, I'm not a mind reader, so I'm gonna assume that they all have good intention. I'm gonna just make a point to say I disagree with that framing. From everything that we've seen from them and how they've completely sold this out, to take the position that, I'm just going to assume good intent on their part, I just strongly disagree with that, because that's not, the evidence shows that they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt anymore. So if the most negative interpretation, which honestly seems like the most realistic interpretation of what's happening right now, is that they sold this out and they're just there to advance their career and they have no intention of fulfilling their promises or advancing the policy agenda of the movement, then I don't think we should just be giving them the benefit of the doubt. They mean well, because that ultimately perpetuates this relationship that people still have to them, because they think that they're on our side. But that was a disagreement that I had with the beginning of this conversation. And I saw in the chat you guys weren't really feeling that you felt like they were, especially Briahna, was being overly kind to the Justice Democrats and Bernie Sanders. But as the exchange progressed, they were just they got more real with it, and they were like, look, if the establishment isn't coming at you full force with every tool that they have, every bullet in the gun and the one in the chamber, if they're not doing everything, they're not unloading everything to remove you and get you out of the way, then you're not really posing a threat to the establishment. And that is a perfect description of what's going on with these Justice Democrats. They aren't a threat to the establishment at all. So I love that part of the exchange. And there was also talk about the labor unions and where they are, because before I even get there, so with these Justice Democrats, as I always say, anytime I do these videos, I make the point that these aren't like isolated incidents. All of these things, they add up. And I don't know what it is, but so many people that I had a lot of respect for, they aren't doing the math when it comes to these Justice Democrats. Every time there's these more information comes that shows that they aren't challenging the establishment, and that more than anything, they're siding with the establishment, they just keep rationalizing it and saying, oh, well, they're doing the best that they can, it's really hard and things like that. And they actually, that's something else that I want to talk about that exchange between the two of them. They kind of busted up that whole talking point about, you don't know what it's like, and it's so hard for them to challenge power, and they're doing the best that they can, and things like that. And Briahna Joy Gray, and I agree with the audience partly, where they say that sometimes she's too generous to these sellout politicians. And honestly, I think part of it is just personal reasons. She knows them personally. She's interacted with them personally. So she doesn't really want to burn bridges, and I don't agree with that. But that's just what it appears to me. But at the same time, she will come out and lay out a damning indictment of what they're actually doing. And she made a great point about how, and Kshama Sawant did too, like, there is too much at stake. People's lives are on the line. Millions of people's lives are on the line. And to try to act as if the possible discomfort that any of these politicians might feel when they actually challenge the establishment, try to act like that's an excuse to allow the untenable status quo to continue. It completely, you have to, if you believe that, you'd have to be putting the feelings of these politicians who are part of the elite class, one of the most powerful people in the world. You're putting their feelings above the material well-beings of so many people in this country and around the world who are bearing the brunt of the neoliberalism and this exploitative system, this capitalist system that we live under. And that is, when you try to analyze it and you look at it, those two things aren't even anywhere near the same level of importance. So to even bring that up to justify them rolling over and not fighting for people like they promised, it makes no sense. And again, they promised that they were going to do this. And I've been mentioning this lately, but all of us who are talking about political revolution and expecting them to be leading political revolution, we didn't just make that up. They came out and jumped in front of the parade and said, hey guys, this shit is real fucked up. And the status quo is untenable. Then we live in an oligarchy. Both parties are corrupt and owned by corporations. And we are going to be leading a political revolution to give power back to the working class. That's what they ran on, right? And now people are holding them to that. And for anybody to come out and say, oh, well, it would be too hard for them, and people are going to be mean to them, the media is going to be mean to them, Nancy Pelosi is going to say mean things about them, and the leadership won't like them. So you can't expect them to actually go scorched earth and burn. No, actually, I do expect them to do that, because that's part of a fucking revolution. You don't do a political revolution by sitting down for tea and crumpets and try to nice the corrupt oligarchs into actually giving power back to the people. That's not how you do a revolution. So yes, I expect them to go scorched earth, because that's what they were fucking promising. And so, as I was saying before I went on this tangent, all these things, none of these things are isolated incidents. Them not forcing the vote, them folding for the CARES Act, the largest upward transfer of wealth corporate fucking heist, them shilling for Joe Biden and getting absolutely nothing in return, them still to this day, even there's no election, but they're still shilling for Joe Biden and acting like he's the best thing since sliced bread, literally pretending like he was FDR, gaslighting us so fucking hard, they were pretending like he was FDR. They're doing that, not forcing Nancy Pelosi out, folding on Biden's stimulus bill, folding on this infrastructure bill. Bernie Sanders literally wrote all of the major legislation that's passed since Biden, or that's the only major legislation that's passed so far since the Biden administration started, which was the stimulus bill. He literally wrote that bill. He could have wrote anything he wanted in that bill, but he didn't. That's not an isolated incident. He only did what Joe Biden told him to do. And they're doing it all over again with the infrastructure bill. None of these things are isolated incidents. This is who they are. This is their career trajectory. And this whole conversation that's being had right now, this exchange between Briahna and Kshama Sawant, about how they refuse to engage in direct action, and even though we know that's the only real way to make demands and get policy wins from the establishment. They refuse to do it, and they aren't viewed as a threat to the establishment by how welcome they are by the establishment and establishment media. So when you add all of those things up together, and then the fact that AOC is giving a bunch of money to corporate Democrats, and then you add in the fact that all of them, the four most prominent Justice Democrats since 2019 alone, gave $13 million to DNC consulting firms, DNC consultants, taking grassroots money and dumping it into the nexus of corporate influence in the party, which is the consulting class. They're doing all of these things. The establishment does not view them as a threat. They are literally part of the establishment. And so I think that anybody who is, I guess some people might not be as raging and both barrels blazing, as unapologetic, if I may say so, as I am. I get that. But if we aren't being real about where the battle lines are, what the dynamics really are here, then we aren't gonna be making it's harder to make progress if we don't know what the actual dynamics at play are. And the dynamics at play are, they are not on our side. They are not the Kshama Sawant. They're not our Kshama Sawant in Congress. That's what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to be there raising hell, and going out with a bang and burning all the bridges until they throw you out by your collar. That's what we sent them there to do. They're not doing that. They're clearly not doing that. So everybody, it is incumbent on everybody, especially the people who gave them the platform, the audience of supporters in new media, and which turn into their political base. It is incumbent on everybody on the left who actually cares about advancing left policies to be real. The Justice Democrats are just another wing of the establishment. Let's just be real about that. They're never going to challenge the establishment for you. They're never going to fight for you. They're there to advance their careers. And all of this, oh man, I think it's too mean to call them a sellout. That shit is done. That shtick is over. And we need to be real about what it is. Because at this point, you trying to, like, if you don't, the only way that I think makes any sense to view these Justice Democrats, to view Bernie, is as if they are just like one of the least shitty corporate Democrats, like one of the least shitty members of the Democratic establishment. Because there are hundreds of Democratic politicians. They're not all as shitty as Nancy Pelosi. Some of them are decent on some issues, and some of them, and all of them, none of them are actually going to challenge power. But like I said, some of them could be decent on some issues. That's the way that we should be viewing Bernie Sanders and AOC and the Justice Democrats. We should not be dumping, unless you're going to give millions of dollars to the rest of the shitty corporate Democrats and the rest of the establishment Democrats. Then it makes no sense to be giving your money and support and volunteer hours to them, because they're just, like I said, a different flavor of the establishment. They're better on some issues than the rest of the Democratic party. But at the end of the day, they're partisan hacks, and they're never going to challenge the party. So all of that means nothing, ultimately. And when we talk about pressure needs to be applied to politicians, pressure in the street, that includes them too. So when I'm talking about, let's be outside these politicians' offices, let's be outside their homes and make it so that they can't ignore us, I'm not just talking about Nancy Pelosi. I'm not just talking about Chuck Schumer or your regular local corporate Democrats. I'm talking about Bernie and AOC and fucking Pramila Jayapal too, because they sold us out and they're not going to fight for us either. So they need to be feeling the pressure too. So I think it's very important to clarify where we all stand here and where they stand, which is not with us. And there was another point that was made there, a great point about even if they made the call for direct action in the street with the labor organizers, the labor leaders, the union leaders, will they get on board and will they support like some type of general strike? That's a great question. And my position on these unions, I have tough words for these unions here, because in theory, do I support unions and collective bargaining on behalf of the workers? Yes, of course. My problem with these unions here in the U.S. is they will, just like the Justice Democrats, just like Brian says, they're never going to actually challenge the establishment, and they're just there to make people's lives slightly less shitty, but they aren't going to use their power, and they're not willing to actually pose a threat to the establishment. So the fact that labor unions have there hasn't been an organized effort to protect workers and demand real workers' rights during this entire pandemic and during this entire economic crisis. It is a damning indictment of the labor movement in this country. Because if during the worst economic crisis, during the worst emergency for workers in our lifetime, and none of them are willing to organize and make real demands. I'm not talking about, the fucking what was it? Not the Kellogg's, the Nabisco workers who went on strike. They ended the strike because the company agreed to increase their wages or like 60 cents an hour every year for like the next 3 years, and then some other minor fucking like scraps that they gave them. So you did a isolated strike that was in that, and I'm gonna get to that in a little bit. But you did an isolated strike that was for your workers, and all you needed to call off the strike was a 60-cent raise. That is, what the fuck is that? And that's not honestly, I will always support workers. I'll always support workers causing friction and demanding more from the owner class. But I will not endorse any type of bullshit incrementalism like going on strike for 60 cents, because I don't support incrementalism from shitty politicians who would offer raising the minimum wage 60 cents or some type of bullshit like that. And I don't support incrementalism when union leaders decide, oh yeah, a 60-cent raise, that's good enough. I'm not going to give them a round of applause and say, way to go, guys, that was a great job. I'm not going to do that. And so back to the point that I was making, if during this entire crisis, there is no the most important and essential labor unions in the most essential industries in this country, they still haven't got it together to say, we're going to shut this whole shit down until the people get an actual bailout. Because that's part of what collective organizing is for. It's not just so you can get some scraps and some crumbs for the union workers in your specific company. It's part of what made unions so great is the wins that they got for workers across the country, regardless if they were part of their union or not. Things like a 40-hour work week and child labor laws and I'm blanking on, and the weekends. Like, you, especially if, and this, with the times that we're living in, where they have with the internet and all this, their capability to organize workers in all different types of key industries, essential industries, not just in their local area, which is the internet provides an amazing opportunity to do that, but also across the country or across their state, and to really shut shit down and make sure business as usual can't continue until the demands are met. They have all this opportunity, all this leverage, and they won't fucking do anything. So I appreciate the truth telling about the union leaders in this country and how they're just as full of shit and not going to do what it takes to actually improve people's lives. I appreciate that the candor on between in that exchange on that. But there was a lot to say in there. I think I got to all the most important things that I wanted to break down in that. There was one more point that I'm forgetting. Probably I'll remember when I go through those chats, but I think that was a great exchange. There was even better parts. I don't want to say better parts, but there were also more great conversation in that whole interview that I wanted to break down. But it was like I already had that 15-minute clip. I was like, man, I can't do any more than that. But maybe at some other time I'll break down some of the other things that they were talking about, because it was a great conversation. So if you guys have time, you should definitely go check that out. So I'm going to look at the live chat right now. And of course, if you want to help support the show, all the links in the description box, and Cash App is pinned in the live chat. So let me see what's happening in the live chat. Chad Wilson says, I just keep seeing Briahna retweet Bernie and Nina all the time. Yeah, and I don't agree with that. I know you already know my position on that. And like I mentioned in my commentary during the segment, I think that because of her personal relationships, and it's not like really like, didn't take any major detective work to understand why she is still has some level of respect for these people and doesn't want to completely torch her relationship with these people. But like I said earlier, I don't think that's a real reason, a legit reason. And if we're going to be in this space, if she's going to be in the media, and she's going to be calling balls and strikes about why it is we're living in a failed state, I think you just have to be honest about the role that these sell-up so-called left politicians have in all of that. And I do think she, in her own ways, and she will say, yeah, they're not being effective. Yeah, they're not challenging democratic leadership. Yeah, they were dead wrong when they wouldn't force the vote. And in those times, she is, out of all the people in the media space, she is one of the most critical of them. But I wish she would get to where I'm at, but she's definitely on that path. And I definitely appreciate the fact that she has guests on her show who will say some of the shit that I will say. And so I appreciate that. Ashura says, Kshama Sawant is a savage. Yeah, she can be. She can be. And you also said, by the way, the infrastructure bill is going to be lowered to $2 trillion. Yeah. I mean, I already knew that first of all, my default position from the beginning of this is that $3.5 trillion bill is bullshit, because fuck what everybody says, oh, this is record spending and all that shit. First of all, it's over 10 years. Second of all, I don't care if it's record spending. Does that meet the moment? Does that address the crises that we're dealing with? The answer is objectively no. So I don't support it. I'm not going to put any energy into to getting people to support it or helping people pass it. I don't think it's enough. That's my position from the beginning. But I also knew for a fucking fact that they weren't going to pass $3.5 trillion. They were going to fold, as always. You can set your clock by them folding and caving and going along with the Democratic establishment. They're always going to do it. And anybody who was going around acting like they were actually going to pass that $3.5 trillion bill, I mean, come on, come on. The level of naivete. It's getting hard to even call it naive at this point, because I mean, you do this for a fucking living, and you see how they fold every time. But like, you keep up with this theater, like, oh no, this time's going to be different. So let's everybody hold off on the criticisms, and I hate this so much, because ultimately, what they do is, when the criticisms carry the most weight and are the most valid and add the most to the conversation, they'll tell you, oh, we can't hold the criticisms until they do X, Y, and Z that we all know that they're going to do. But by the time that all happens, a lot of the fanfare is gone, and the real time for action has already passed. And you were telling us to be quiet, and we can't say what we all know they're going to do, because we just have to wait and see until they do it. And it's like a never-ending cycle, because they're always going to do it, and there's always people going to tell us, "Oh, be quiet," until they do it. And then when they finally do it, everybody's gonna be like, "Oh, you're still complaining about this list. We're on to the next thing now, infrastructure bill, or the stimulus bill's done. We're on to the infrastructure bill. So let's stop bitching about how they folded on that." So it's just always this never-ending a protection racket to defend them from legitimate criticisms. Chad Wilson says, "Okay, so there it is." I think that was when they turned up the dial on the criticism, and they were really going in. Ashura says, Kshama Sawant doesn't care just a little, but she seems like a female version of Chris Hedges, unapologetic. Yeah, she's definitely in that class of, I know where I stand, and I know who's my enemy, and I'm not gonna try to nice the establishment into being like less of an oligarchy. It's gonna be a knockdown, drag out fight, and I'm gonna be here for it. So I definitely appreciate that vibe from Kshama Sawant. George E says, Briahna plays both sides. It's a shame. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say it is her playing both sides, but like I said, she will lay down the wood when the moment calls for it, as she did in the clip. Ware Pilgrim says, but she's a lawyer by training and likes to engage in multiple sides of an issue. I do think that's also part of it. Her time, like, in law school and practicing law and things like that, you do have to actually like, you have to engage with you have to, I don't know, you have to present both sides, and I think that's, she kind of takes that into her criticisms of the Justice Democrats and Bernie. Chad Wilson says, I think she is. I think you're talking about, I think you're talking about she's too nice. I think she is, but I think she is. She's too nice with them. Bernie said Biden wasn't corrupt. Bernie is a liar. Bernie is the reason we are here now. He chose to bend the knee. Yeah, that's true. Bernie's a fucking liar. He's aiding and abetting in the corruption, so I think it's fair to say he's corrupt. Maybe he doesn't have the same, like, outright, like, financial benefits that a lot of members of Congress have, but he's participating in the corruption for the advancement of his career. So, like I always say, we need to kill this myth that Bernie is like this upstanding, good man who, like, is above reproach. I don't agree with that at all. And like you said, he also is just a fucking liar, and he lies for Joe Biden on the regular. Um, but she did have some words for Bernie about one of the. That's what I forgot to add. Um, she had some words for Bernie when about a picture of him in the Oval Office talking about infrastructure bill with Joe Biden and some other corporate Democrats, and she was like, that picture made me kind of cringe because you're just there compromising and folding and folding and folding. And like I always mention, Bernie started his when he was running for president, not a lifetime ago, but just in 2020, he was running on a Green New Deal, which would have invested $16 trillion in revamping the infrastructure in this country, and bringing us and transferring us into renewable energy. That's what the $16 trillion in the Green New Deal would have done, and building high speed rails and things like that, and electric car charging stations and revamping energy grids and all those things. That's what he thought was necessary when he was running for president. And now, with this infrastructure bill, he started at $6 trillion, which cut $10 trillion off of his what he was, and his Green New Deal. That was just for infrastructure, mind you. That was just for infrastructure. This was supposed to cover childcare, universal childcare, Medicaid expansion, and lowering Medicare eligibility age, and a bunch of other shit. And it was $10 trillion less initially than what he was asking for in his Green New Deal, which is strictly infrastructure. And then he cuts it down to $3.5 trillion. Now it's even less than that. And he's still there providing legitimacy to this fucking farce of legislation for Joe Biden. Again, providing cover for Joe Biden and pretending like, oh, this is okay, guys. Trust me, we did everything we could. Might not be perfect, might not be everything, but boy, this is a great bill. And he's providing cover to the neoliberalism. And so Briahna has some words about that, and her frustration with that this new not new, but this insider version of Bernie Sanders was a great commentary. Majin Bo says what she's fuck. Majin Bo says what she's saying about personality-centered politics is all facts. Yeah, and so that was another thing. Kshama Sawant made the point about like all of this making it seem like, oh, we need like this savior type person to come and they have to be 100% correct on everything, and they have to be the most upstanding person, whatever. And that's the only way we can ever get any change. You have to be, we're waiting for this one person, but that's not realistic, and that's not what we should be looking for. We should have standards, and the standards should be, are you going to actually challenge the establishment? And all of this other bullshit about, oh, well, you have to play the inside game too, and you have to suck up to the Democratic leadership, and oh, but they can't be too mean, they can't go scorched earth, and they can't burn bridges and all this. Like, all of that is just bullshit. Are you going to challenge power or are you not? And all the rest, the making friends and all that is bullshit. Majin Buu 17 also says you would never catch Sawant at the Met Gala. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, she did go, she would be with those fucking protesters outside, most likely. She would be wearing a fucking tax and rich dress. Beverly Jensen says Brianna needs better tech. I'm pretty sure that was on my end. I have no idea what that was or why the video was doing that, but when I watched it on YouTube, I don't think it was doing that. So it was on my end. Macrogram says the audio was good, but the video was cursed and hilarious. That's what I was saying. As I saw it was happening, I was like, "Fuck!" But at least the audio is still going. Damn, there were a lot of live chats. Macro Cam says, I don't know about this interview in particular, but I have no love for softball, ego feeding media spots. It's not helpful. I agree with that. I think definitely the way that first of all, I think politicians should it should be like walking through hot coals anytime they get in front of a camera, anytime they have to talk to a journalist, anytime they have to answer questions. Because first of all, we live in a failed state, and there's nobody else to blame other than the fucking politicians running the country. So everything that's wrong, they all need to be answering for why the fuck they are doing anything to fix it. That's first and foremost. So they should all be nothing but fucking. I mean, the pointed, hard hitting questions should be never ending, and it shouldn't just be from one person or one outlet. Anytime they talk to a journalist, that's what they should be getting. And on new media, when we interview politicians, it is a bunch of it's just a big old suck fest, and about like just come on and tell everybody how great you are, and I don't think that's productive, especially when they're already elected, like the Justice Democrats, and they keep selling us out, and then they're going to come out to left media, or allegedly left media, progressive media, and face no pushback for that. They should be like they should also be pelted with questions for why it is they aren't doing shit to advance the policies of the left. So I generally agree with your sentiment about softball interviews. I'm not a fan of them at all. I one of the reasons I don't do interviews is because I just that dynamic is it can happen at any time, and like I just don't want to. I prefer not to do that. And if you ever see me interview a politician, just know most likely it's gonna be gonna be some tough questions in it. I just so I just try to avoid that because I don't like seeing those softball interviews, and I'd be kind of grossed out if I ended up doing one day. So I'm still looking at the live chat right now. All right, I think I'm gonna move on to the next story I wanted to talk about, which is that that Google story about the keyword search warrants, the secret warrants that the FBI and Department of Justice have been getting. Let me just upload a screenshot from the article. And then let me download that onto the laptop so I can show it all to you. I think that's it. There we go. So before I get into that next story, if you all want to help support the show, the links are in the description box of this video. Links to PayPal if you want to do one-time contribution, Patreon if you want to help support the show monthly. My brain froze. GoFundMe. I need a place to record, also a place to live. So there's GoFundMe for that in the description box. And there's a link to Cash App in the description box, and there's also a link to Cash App that's pinned in the live chat. So the next story I'm gonna talk about. These lights, baby. These lights. Oh, and somebody said something about, I think it was actually a comment on my last live stream. Somebody said something about I should wear sunglasses. I have transition lenses, and they're supposed to turn into, like, the lens is supposed to turn dark when I'm in, like, sunlight. Um, and they're prescription, so I can't really see anything if I was just wearing regular sunglasses. So unless I get prescription sunglasses, which I do not have the money for, and nor would it be a good investment at this point, I can't really do anything about that. And if I did wear sunglasses, I wouldn't be able to read the live chat. And the whole point of me wearing glasses is so I can read the live chat. So yeah. All right. So the next story. So there was a bombshell story that came out a couple days ago that nobody's really reporting on. I actually haven't really seen anybody talk about. I think maybe Glenn Greenwald, he did some, like, a thread on Twitter about it. Maybe wrote an article about it on Substack. But a reporter at Forbes came across secret court documents from the Department of Justice. The only reason why he even saw it was because the Department of Justice accidentally made it public and unsealed the court documents, and the reporter saw them. And so what was in the court documents was apparently that Google was served with a warrant from the FBI, the Department of Justice, and it was a keyword warrant. And these are the very secretive warrants that the FBI and the Department of Justice have been giving to Google, and I'm assuming other search engines, where they get a warrant, and the way that a warrant is supposed to work, and the reason why you need a warrant is you're supposed to get, if you suspect a person of a crime, you get the warrant, or you suspect the person has evidence of a crime, you get the warrant, and it has to be a specific warrant for a specific thing that you're looking for. And you present it to a judge, the prosecutor is supposed to present it to a judge, and the judge is supposed to deny or grant the warrant. But with these keyword warrants, it's not a specific person that they're trying to get information on. They get these warrants I'm sorry, there is something loud as fuck Let me know if you can hear it. But I'm sorry, that was very distracting. Uh, so with these keyword warrants, they go to Google and say, give me all the information you have on anybody who searched for this specific keyword. And now that person becomes a suspect in a crime based on their internet searches. That's kind of crazy. Um, Again, there isn't a lot of information on this. This is almost entirely done in secret. The only reason why we know about this specific instance was because uh, um, oh my god, I don't know what that is, but it's very distracting. The only reason we know about it in this instance is because, like I said at the beginning of the stream, uh, the Department of Justice accidentally unsealed the court documents and made them public, and they weren't supposed to be made public; supposed to be sealed. So they're doing this all the time in secret. We have no idea how often they're doing it, and in this specific instance, they added more details to the search. So it was for keywords during a specific time in a specific area, and they requested all of the user information, the IP addresses and locations for anybody who searched for those terms in that and under those parameters. And then they were provided names from Google. Now the reporter doesn't know what information Google gave to the Department of Justice in this warrant, but they obviously had to give them something. And again, like I said, nobody knows how often they're doing this. Nobody knows how broad the search terms are, and the or like the location, the net for how like the area that they're doing the search in or anything like that. So it can be as broad as you could possibly imagine, and the way that our government functions, especially with the mass surveillance, I wouldn't be surprised if they're just doing at random. But I'll get into that. Where Pilgrim says you could hear it. Okay, so I thought you'd hear it because that was outrageous. That sound was outrageous. But I'm going to read you a quick I'm going to read you a little bit from the article. It's just a screenshot of a paragraph. Give me 1 second. So, it says, quote, in an attempt to chase down the perpetrators, investigators turned to Google, asking the tech giant to provide information on anyone who had searched the victim's name, two spelling of her mother's name, and her address over 16 days across the year. After being asked to provide all relevant Google accounts and IP addresses of those who made these searches, Google responded with data in mid 2020 through the court documents. Though the court documents do not reveal how many users had their data sent to the government. And so the specific instance, the specific case, and I don't want to get too much into the specific case because that's not the issue here. The issue is that this is being done and the precedent's been set, and we have no idea how broad this actually is. But some of the details on this case, there was a minor who was kidnapped and or raped or something like that, and they were trying to find her, and they did this keyword war, and some people might say, oh, they were trying to find a little girl or whatever, but with issues when it comes to privacy and government overreach, you're not supposed to set precedent based off of an emotional response to a specific case. People's rights and privacy is supposed to be paramount above any individual case you can think of. And so, like I said, the precedent here is really the issue, because we don't know how often they're doing this, how wide it is, but we know for a fact that the precedent is now set. They will go to Google and they will just get warrants and information on people at random just for doing a search on the internet, and now they're the target of a criminal investigation. And we already know that the FBI is known for framing and setting people up. So this is not a good thing, and honestly, the relationship that these tech companies have with the government, it's not borderline fascism. It is quite literally the definition of fascism. Of the corporations and the state have merged. And there was also an article that I was reading. I might have to do another segment about it, about how Google and a lot of these tech companies were created by the CIA and the national security apparatus as a way of collecting data and monitoring what everybody was doing on the internet, especially back during a time when there was like really no um, um, way to see what people were doing on the internet. So they heavily invested in these tech companies so that they collect people's data. And this is just one instance of the keyword warrants, but there have been so many times in examples of how there's this like symbiotic relationship where the private corporations are collecting all of our data and then just handing it over to the government. And so there is no real separation between them. And so ultimately this is just another form of mass surveillance, illegal mass surveillance that the government is doing. And I just think this is one of those issues that there needs to be way more pushback on. There was also another. This was a story years and years ago from the Intercept, back before they went to complete shit, about AT&T and the NSA, and how they basically just giving all of their users information to the NSA. There's this building, there's a giant a skyscraper in Manhattan, with no windows, weird ass building, and it's supposed to be like I forget what it's called. It was so long ago since I read this article. It's like a hub for all of AT&T's communication on like this side of the world or this side of the country. And the NSA has access to that building, and they have access to all the information coming in and out of that building, and the AT&T allows this. So, but that and all of the other instances of them, like I said, just collecting our information and giving it over to the government, it's people don't understand how new all of this technology and stuff is, and that the law needs to catch up to it. And the only way that can happen is if there's pressure from the people to make the law catch up to it. Because at this point, it's just there is nothing really, no laws in place or being enforced to really lay out what the separation between corporations and the government should be. And because of that, they're just taking advantage of the situation, and they're just using them as an extension of the government. And this is alarming, really dystopian shit. So let me see what's happening in the chat. I see Sneed's in the chat. I think if I'm pronouncing your name right. Bill Bradley says these are the kinds of warrants the Ministry of Truth that we are about to get will use in their censorship program or censorship campaign. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, we don't know exactly what's going on with this, but the fact that the government just at the drop of a dime, they can just have access to any and all information from anybody online. It's concerning. Bill Bradley also says we're not prepared for when they censor every site on the internet. Yeah, that's what they're trying to do, because well, it's a lot harder to go page by page, but what they've done a masterful job of doing is they've made these giant gatekeepers of the internet. Google being one of them, and so Google will decide if anybody can even find your website. If they're searching for it, if they're looking for it, Google will decide they'll bury you in the search results and make it so that you can't. You only appear on like the 50th Google page of the Google search or whatever it is, and just like that, then you're just not going to be found on the internet. So they put in place these gatekeepers, and with Facebook or whatever, before it'd be much harder to if people were just making a website and putting whatever information they want on their website and tell people to go to this. It's much harder to shut that down. But like I said, they have these gatekeepers. So now everybody's posting on Facebook, everybody's posting on Twitter. Well, now we're just going to get Facebook and Twitter to do the censorship, and that appears to be the way that we're going with it, the direction they're going in this. Macrogram says, I'm screwed. Thinking over my searches just yesterday, I Googled when will Henry Kissinger die. And that was another point that was made by the by civil rights lawyers, the ACLU. They were like, this is not only a Fourth Amendment issue, because what kind of warrant is it where you can just randomly get information on anybody, everybody, and anybody who search for some random fucking word or whatever? So it's a Fourth Amendment issue. It's also a First Amendment issue, because now people are just going to be like, knowing this makes people afraid to even do simple searches or whatever online, because they just if the government is just the company is just going to hand over the information to the government, then it's kind of a way of intimidation. Jamie Nick says, this is crazy, bro. Yes, it is crazy. Whale Pilgrim says, you're under arrest. Quote, why? You search for the article, they'll get you 10 years in the big house. Yeah, that's what it's coming down to now. Like, you they and again, they have all this information on everybody. So if they did want to frame somebody for some shit or set somebody for some shit, it is a lot easier to do. Phenomenal Mysticism says, really, Google wants people to be arrested for searching something, while we really do live in a cartoon or some fictional TV show. Yeah, it's this timeline that we're in. It's getting crazier by the fucking day, and it's not like, oh, we're like flirting with dystopian fascist police state. No, we are there. We are literally there. and like all of the fucking resistance leader with the fucking eye patch and all of like the underground rebels and shit like that. Like that's kind of where we're at right now. That's kind of where we're at. Macrogram says Europe has better citizen protections for digital data privacy. The U.S. is the Wild West. Yes, and honestly, the only check on these giant tech companies is becoming from like regulators from Europe, because like you said, the U.S. is the Wild West. They do whatever the fuck they want here. But when they get certain rulings and certain policies, legislative or court orders or court decisions in Europe, then they have to change their practices here too. So anytime they do something, they have to change their company to be less shitty or to violate privacy less. Almost guaranteed it's not because they came to that decision themselves. There was like some type of court order or some type of legislation passed in Europe that forced their hand. Bill Bradley says that quote about fascism being the merging of state and corporate power by Mussolini is actually misattributed. He never said that. I wasn't like quoting Mussolini. That is literally, if you Google the definition of fascism, it is something about merging of the state and corporations. Abolished politician says, just got here. You are kicking some ass on this channel. Watched for quite a while. Consistent, solid ass analysis. Thank you so much. It's one of the best compliments I can get because I've been around for some time. I was watching content. Well, in coming January, it'd be 3 years since I started the show, but I've been watching content in live media for a lot longer than that. And I have seen people come and go, and I've seen some people fall, and content just turn to shit. And that is a very real possibility. So it does. I appreciate compliments like that. That my content is consistently at a level that you appreciate. Sure, it says Nick. Yeah, fuck. Let's scroll past it. Hassan versus Nick from Fred Hampton Leftist. I have to look into that. Chris H. Anybody who criticizes China for censorship and mass surveillance can eat their words when the federal agencies do stuff like this. So, China is just, they will just, the only difference between how much they're surveilling their public versus how much the U.S. government or how much control they have over the public versus here, they will just like outright ban a website, and they won't even like give any pretense for why they did it. They'll just do it and they say we felt like doing it. That's really the only noticeable difference I can say. And even here, we'll do it, but at least they'll come up with some bullshit. Like with the when we did those sanctions and on Iran or whatever the fuck it was, you see the domains for a bunch of media outlets that got some funding from Iran and things like that. Some of them who didn't even, but they just took them off the internet basically. It was bullshit, 100% bullshit. There was no actual justification, but they at least pretended that there was something there. They wrote up some sanctions on a piece of paper to justify it, but like China would shut it off. But at the end of the day, they're all spying on us, just like the Chinese government is spying on us. They control the flow of information, just like they control the flow of information in China. So I know people do try to make it seem like, oh, it's we have so much freedom and China they don't, but no, the social control is a little bit more covert here, I guess. Georgie says pretty soon they'll arrest you for typing Jimmy Dore or Dontel Hines on Google. See, and this is the thing. It's a joke, but you don't know if it's a joke. You don't now. We really don't know what it. Your searches will get you, will put you in the crosshairs of the government, and we don't know what search terms that they are using to classify people in categories. We don't know what they're doing with it, the extent they're doing it. Is it just criminal cases? Are they or the people that they like to call domestic extremists, the radicals, and the shit like that? So are they using these keyword searches to monitor them too? So we don't know. Where Pilgrim says just touching the keyboard will get you on the wanted list soon enough. Yep. Oh, sure. You said something about TYT, but I have something else to say about TYT, and I get someone else to do this in the live stream tomorrow. Oh, they did a shitty interview with Ilhan Omar, a shitty softball interview, and a Kasparian. Holy fuck! I mean, I went in there with no expectations, of course. They're just going to show for the Justice Democrats, show for all these progressives, no matter what. Anyway, I went into that well aware. Still, I was like, yo, you have no fucking shame. Like, all the criticisms to be made of these Justice Democrats, and you gonna come and ask them bullshit softball ass questions. So she asked it was bullshit. The interview was bullshit. Off the top of my head, I can't give you a great summary of it, but now that I'm thinking about it, I might actually have to do like a put it into the live stream tomorrow, because it was a bunch of bullshit questions, bullshit answers, no follow up, and it was like, and I know they're not like serious push, like actually seriously pushing left agenda, left policies at TYT. We all know that, but like, everybody in this left media space, anytime you get these fucking politicians in front of you, you're not like curious why the fuck they aren't doing anything to advance the agenda. And like, how is that not the main topic of the discussion? You gotta ask them all this bullshit. Oh, tell me how you feel about Joe Manchin. Oh, tell me how you feel about Crescent Cinema. Oh, can you tell me all the great things in this shitty bill that you're trying to push right now? Like, all of this bullshit that they'll ask anywhere else. Like, you're supposed to be left, right? Don't you have like questions pertinent to the left and left movement? And the fact that nobody wants to press them on that, it's telling. They know that they aren't doing shit, and they don't want to press them on the fact that they're not doing shit, because they don't want to make their friends look bad. Where Pilgrim says Madeline Albright and Margaret Thatcher stands unite. Yeah, I'm sure they had a lot to bond over in that fucking interview. Their love of war criminals and vile political figures. Chris H says it's sad what happened to TYT, because it's from them that I learned that the migrants were getting put in cages under Obama during his administration. Yeah, I mean, so many people in this space, were either directly or indirectly influenced by some of the work that they were doing at TYT when they were doing decent work. And it is crazy the fall off, like how they have they've squandered all of the potential that the network had to be like an actual force to push left policy. They squandered their role as like the people leading the charge for this left takeover of independent this left and independent takeover of media. They completely gave up their role in that, and it's fucking sad. You see what they fucking turn into, a bunch of fucking partisan bullshitters. Debate Me channel says TYT the best, better than all the rest. You know what? Now that I think about it, I can't argue with that. Bill Bradley says, I mean, it was always a network named Nazi. The Young Turks committed the Armenian genocide. They were always suspect. For the life of me, I cannot understand why they stuck with that name this entire time. Uh, I know at one point Cenk he denied the Armenian genocide even happened, but I think he like acknowledged it when he started the Young Turks. By the time he started the Young Turks, I'm pretty sure. But even if he didn't, why not just change the fucking name? Because you're named after a group that did genocide, and the makes it even weirder. Your co-host is from the people who were genocided. So that name makes absolutely. It isn't even like an amazing name. Like there's another meaning for it that means like young rebels or something like that. Okay, do something else with rebels in it or whatever. Like it's not that great a name, and the fact that they just refuse to change it, it's just always weird to me. The fact that they even chose that for their name to begin with is fucking weird, and it's not even like some type of cancel culture thing. It is just kind of, it's just fucking weird. It's just weird. Damn, 50 people in the chat in the live stream still at 2 a.m. I mean, these last 2 days have been an eye opener, and y'all are gonna make me be an even worse night owl, because sometimes I like actually literally every time I do content for the show, I try to do it like have it ready by like 10 o'clock or whatever, because I'm like y'all will watch it late, but I ain't gonna push it and be like, oh, it's some fucking 2 o'clock and shit like that. But apparently y'all like unapologetic no matter what hour it is, so I appreciate that. But I will be ending the stream soon. I'll check if you guys have any last comments you want to add, put them in the chat, and I'll get to them. But while I wait for that, because there is a delay between what I'm saying this and the live chat. But if you guys want to help support the show, the links to support the show are in the description box. Links to PayPal if you want to do one-time contribution. Links to Patreon if you want to help support the show monthly. Links to GoFundMe to help me get a place to live and record, because this recording in hotel rooms has been a pain in the ass. I hate it. It's caused a bunch of headaches with trying to record and shit like that. I have to keep taking my studio apart and setting it up again. Because of that, I lost one of my fucking wires from my microphone to connect it to my laptop. This is just a whole be bitching and moaning about. It is this situation is not ideal, and I would prefer to have a regular studio so I can make content for you all. So all those links are there, and I actually did get a donation on GoFundMe from James Tibbs during the live stream. Thank you so much. It was a $20 donation. Thank you so much for that. I really, really appreciate that. And there's also links to Cash App in the description box, and there's a link to Cash App pinned in the live chat. Daniel Lundgren says 10 minutes past midnight in Colorado. Yes, that's also true. There is some type of there are some time differences. Some people might be on the West Coast. Some people might be on Central Time. Some people I have people watching from all around the world. Sam Lurf, I think it is. Where is he from? Or he or she? I think from Switzerland or something like that. So I always have people from all over the world watching the videos and live chat. So it might be a different time somewhere else around the world. Where Pilgrim says, "Good stream, get some sleep. You're better than Seth Meyers." Thank you. I would hope so. I would hope I'm better than Seth Meyers. Oh my God! So let me just say this real quick. First of all, late night shows have been shit for a while, but during the pandemic, when they were like forced out of the studio and they were all like making content from their homes, and it was an equal. They wanted an equal playing field, not an equal playing field, because they will always get boosted in the algorithm. They always have a production team or whatever, but in terms of quality, they were like on the equal playing field with us YouTubers and things like that. And it was the talent was not there. They were so stale. It was so dry. They didn't have any laugh tracks. They didn't have a audience laughing on cue. They didn't have all the props and shit like that. They were just having to sit in front of a camera and a microphone, and they were all horrible. So yeah, that goes to show you all the people on TV is not because they're super talented. It's not because they're the best at what they do. It's they have connections and they don't rock the boat and they're friendly with the establishment. And if you put them in a situation where they have to make their own audience on their own, or you put them in a situation where they have to entertain their audience without a giant fucking production behind them, they can't do it. Ah, where did that shit go? Okay. Jared R says I just woke up. Yeah, I'm like that too. Even if I do go to sleep early, I'm gonna just end up waking up, and it don't even have to be like actually like legitimately early. But if I go to sleep at like 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or something like that, I'm almost always gonna wake up at like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and then just be up bullshit until the sun comes up. So I feel you there, Jared R. You could always go back and watch the rest of the live stream when it's over because I have the replay. Assura says, "Wait, what? You mean laugh tracks? So the laughter is fake? Some of it is fake. Some of, but and then also they have their audience there, and they have like literal fucking signs, like glowing signs talking about laugh or some shit like that. Um, yeah, the whole thing is a fucking sad. The entertainment industry is fucking sad at this point, and they're going out bad, and they will then 100% be replaced by regular ass people like me in front of a camera and a microphone. Um, the Debate Me channel says, I'm actually not listening to this video. My phone is automatically posting comments in this chat. Welcome to the future. I'm actually sleeping right now. Amen. This is what the future's like. I can't wait to get there. Automatically posting my comments on live streams. I mean, when I'm there, I'll tell them Debate Me, bro. He told me how the future's going to turn out. And I'm not surprised at all. So when that future finally comes, I already know what's coming. Abolish politician says it's easy to stand up to Republicans, has me thinking Colbert is revolutionary. Bush correspondence dinner speech wasn't so revolutionary. Yeah, like it's always like you said, it's easy to do that. Like with the Trump shit, with the Trump derangement syndrome and hating Trump and all this shit. It's easy to do that. And you'll see how serious a person is about challenging power if they're going to do it in a way that isn't so easy. If they're going to do it in a way that might get them a lot of shit, and that would include challenging the Democratic Party, because those are always the popular people. Those are always the in crowd. Most people you know in your life, if they vote any kind of way, they're most likely going to be voting Democrat. So, and if you're in the media, most of them a huge chunk of them are Democrats, and in entertainment and Hollywood and all stuff, a lot of them are Democrats. So it's easy to shit on Republicans, but when you shit on the Democrats and the Republicans, and you actually call out the duopoly and the oligarchy, then you're actually saying things that are will offend people that you like, people in your circle. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're not challenging power. I'm gonna read this comment from Bill Bradley. Maybe the last one. It says your principle. Ooh, okay. Your principles are only ever tested when there's something to lose. Otherwise, it's just making easy choices. Yeah, that is a something to live by. Those are words to live by. All right, I think I'm gonna end the stream there. Like I said, all the ways to support the channel, description box, Cash App is pinned in the live chat. The Debate Me channel. So I don't know if you heard my response about the sponsorship. I don't really do those here on this channel, but feel free to reach out. I'm not going to ignore you. Like I said, I hard to get in touch with because it is a lot. It is a lot to keep up with doing this channel. So I said DMing me on Twitter would probably be one of the best ways. If you want to get, if you wanted to send me information, um, emailing me at the email for the show, which is unapologetic unapologeticbiz01@gmail.com. Um, yeah, so if you wanted to send whatever information, you could send it there. But I'm going to tap out. 2 hours and 10 minutes. Honestly wasn't even planning on going that long tonight. But it happened. It happened. Y'all got me. Y'all got me. Great live stream. Again, still 50 viewers in the chat right now. In the live stream right now. Y'all were here. Y'all were here for the ride. I greatly appreciate it. So I'm gonna end the stream. If you guys have anything that you want me to cover tomorrow, let me know. I have 2 stories. Oh, Michaela Cortez. Oh, hey Michaela. I've seen you around before, and you've donated to me before, so I really appreciate you donating again on PayPal. A $5 donation from Michaela Cortez says, "Glad to see you getting more viewers. Keep going strong." Thank you so much. And as always, I always appreciate the people who've been along for the ride, watch the channel grow. I know some people who've been watching and commenting from the time. There's some people I remember from back when I had less than 1,000 subscribers. There's some people I remember from like around 100. Tom Coffee from Coffee and Nuance, who he has his own YouTube channel, has maybe like 6,000 subscribers. He was one of the first subscribers I ever had. I remember I had a technical issue with one of my videos where I posted the whole thing with no sound. That's how early it was that I would even do some stupid shit like that. I swear to God, I had less than 100 subscribers, and he commented, he's like, "Oh, there's no audio," and then I caught it, and I had to upload the video again. But anyway, there's like a bunch of people who've been around and supporting the show for a very long time. And like I said, in January, it's going to be 3 years, which sounds fucking crazy to me. But I appreciate all of you and everybody who supports the show financially, everybody who keeps showing up, everybody who keeps commenting. I love all of you. I appreciate all of you. Abolish Politician says, "I've been here forever under different usernames, been banned a million times." Well, I'm glad you still keep coming back. Fuck YouTube, fuck Google, and fuck the machine. Keep coming back. I appreciate that very much, Abolish Politicians. So, George E., all of you, Macrograms, I'll see you all tomorrow. Like I said, if you have anything that you want me to cover, comment it on any of the videos. You can comment it on this live stream once it's posted. You can at me on Twitter, DM me on Twitter. Like I said, it is not a sure thing that I will respond to you because it is a lot. It is a lot. But I will be looking for any stories that you guys might want me to cover. I might talk about that Ilhan Omar interview with the Young Turks, that shitty softball interview. There was something else that I wanted to talk about. So I think I for sure have 2 stories to talk about in the live stream. So if you have anything else you want me to talk about, anything you want to see covered, like I said, contact me any of those ways. Like I said, in the description if you want to help support the show. But that being said, thank you all so much. I'm going to end the stream. I will catch you tomorrow. Probably we'll be around the same time, 10:30,